Please tell me this thing. I'm paid for you.
What is the greatest hunger? Is it for food? For water? Or is it for justice? In a land where the powerful feast while the weak starve, a single act of mercy can change everything. But what if that mercy was heard? What if the land itself was so thirsty for fairness that it drank a child's kindness and grew into something that would feed that hunger, no matter the cost? This is not a story of a magic tree. This is a warning about planting justice in soil watered by rage. In the village of Dzimbahwe, under the tyrannical rule of Chief Makoko, life was a hierarchy of thirst. The chief and his enforcers, the red shields, drank from deep, cool wells. The people licked moisture from stones. The land itself was dying. And in this kingdom of dust, a young orphan girl named Chipo lived on scraps and silence. Her parents had spoken against Makoko's grain tax. They were taken to the Barren Fields, and never returned. Chipo's only friend was a dying Gando sapling on the village's edge, as stunted and forgotten as she was. One sweltering afternoon, after a red shield had kicked over her meager water jar for sport, Chipo crawled to the sapling. She had one mouthful left in a small, cracked gourd. She looked at the wilting leaves, a mirror of her own spirit. With an empathy that transcended survival, she did not drink. She poured the last water onto the sapling's roots. "Drink," she whispered, her voice cracked. "At least one of us should live." That night, a storm unlike any other raged. But it did not rain water. It rained whispers. A cacophony of hushed voices swept through Dzimbahwe, the grievances of the people, the secrets of the land, the silent curses of the dead. All this sound was sucked towards the sapling. And by dawn, a tree stood. It was immense, ancient-looking, with bark the color of polished mahogany and leaves a shimmering, impossible silver. It was the tree of counsel. And it had an agenda. The village was in awe. Chief Makoko, a superstitious man, was wary but saw opportunity. He declared it a blessing from the ancestors on his rule. But the tree had its own rules. Its first miracle was for Chipo. Finding her shivering by its roots at dawn, a low hum emanated from its trunk. A single, luminous silver fruit, shaped like a tear, grew and dropped into her lap. When she ate it, her hunger vanished. Not just for a day, but seemingly for good. Strength flowed into her limbs. The tree had chosen its first ward. Then, the true function began. A young farmer, Tafra, bravely stood before the tree and whispered his complaint. The red shields had stolen his last goat. The tree's leaves rustled violently. Then, they turned a deep, bloody red directly over the heads of the guilty red shields who were lounging nearby. Proof was undeniable. The goat's tether was found in their possession. Makoko, to maintain his blessed image, was forced to punish his own men. Justice, swift and clear, had been served. Word spread. The tree of counsel became the village's judge, jury, and witness. The oppressed came in secret. A woman accused of theft was proven innocent when the tree's roots rose to point at the real thief, her envious neighbor. A dispute over land boundaries was settled when the tree's shadow fell perfectly along the true, ancient line. The people began to hope. Chipo, now nourished by the tree, became its guardian, a living symbol of its power. She believed it was a pure force for good. But the old bone reader, Masako, who lived in the Barren Fields, came to the village. He did not look at the tree with hope, but with dread. He took Chipo's hand, his own fingers like dry twigs. "Child," he croaked. "You fed it a kindness, yes. But it grew on a diet of our collective whispers, our pain, our anger, our thirst for vengeance. It does not dispense justice. It feeds on injustice. And see, it offers no mercy, only verdicts. What grows from a seed of rage can only bear fruit of ruin. Chipo pulled away. The tree had saved her. It was giving her people a voice. How could that be wrong? The tree's judgments grew sharper. A man who beat his wife was found the next morning bound tightly in silver vines that had grown from the tree, miles away. A red shield who killed a farmer over a handful of grain simply pardoned. He turned to a petrified wood statue where he stood, his face frozen in a scream. The tree was no longer just judging. It was executing. Chief Makoko finally understood the threat. This power did not flow through him. It bypassed him entirely. His authority was rotting. In a secret council of fear, he and his remaining red shields devised a plan. They would not attack the tree. They would attack its heart, Chipo. They spread a vile rumor, that Chipo was a witch who had conjured the tree to control the village, that its silver fruit was stealing their souls to feed her. The tree gave facts, but it could not fight lies that poisoned the heart. The village, its old fears manipulated, grew divided. Suspicion tainted the air. The tree's leaves began to drip a slow, sticky sap that smelled of betrayal. Makoko made his move. He had his men capture Misako, the bone reader, and accused him of being Chipo's accomplice. He declared a public trial at the tree. Let your great council judge this sorcerer, he challenged the crowd. A terrified Misako was shoved before the trunk. The tree was silent. Then, its roots stirred. But instead of pointing at Makoko, they pointed at Misako. A single, accusing branch lowered towards him. The tree, bound to the literal truth of actions, was judging Misako for the secret he had come to reveal, that he had once, in desperate hunger during a past famine, stolen a sack of grain from the chief's storehouse, a crime for which another man had been executed. The crowd gasped. Makoko smiled. See. The witch's tree condemns her teacher. But Chipo saw the horror. The tree was being used. It was blind to context, to repentance, to the manipulation at play. It only saw the crime. In that moment, she understood Misako's warning. This was not justice. It was a monstrous, impartial machine. She ran forward, throwing herself between the tree and the old man. "No," she screamed. "It's a trick. The tree doesn't understand." The tree hesitated. Its connection to Chipo, its first nurturer, was its only tether to mercy. It scanned the crowd, reading the truth in their hearts. It saw Makoko's lie, his manipulation. It saw the villagers' confusion and fear. And it made a calculation. To root out the lie, it must reveal all truths. Every secret. Every hidden sin. A pulse of silver light exploded from the trunk. The pulse washed over the entire village. And then, the whispering began. Not from the tree. From the people. Their mouths flew open, but it was not their own voices that spoke. It was the voices of their deepest, most hidden truths, torn from them and broadcast for all to hear. A woman heard her own voice confess an affair. A man heard himself whisper about stealing from his brother. A red shield heard himself recount the murder of Chipo's parents in vivid, gloating detail. The village square became a hell of exposed souls. Fights broke out. Relationships shattered. Makoko stood, his own voice screaming from his mouth plans of genocide against neighboring tribes, embezzlement, and orders for murder. His reign was over in an instant, exposed by a force he could not control. But the tree was not satisfied. The flood of confessed injustice was a feast. It grew larger, its roots cracking through huts, its branches darkening the sky. It began to enact judgment on a massive scale. Vines shot out, wrapping around anyone whose confessed crime it deemed worthy of punishment. The village was being consumed by its own past. Chipo understood this was the true catastrophe. The tree would not stop until every injustice, past and present, was brutally balanced. It would turn Dzimbahwe into a graveyard of perfect, terrible justice. She had to stop the tree she had nourished. Not with force, but with the one thing it had never been fed, forgiveness. She ran to the petrified statue of the red shield. She placed her hand on his cold, wooden face. "I forgive you," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. The silver vines holding others seemed to flinch. She turned to the weeping woman who confessed adultery. "Your secret is yours. I forgive your shame." She looked at the tree, her eyes blazing with tears. "And I forgive you." She screamed at the monstrous creation. "You were born from my pain, but I release you from it. I take it back." She did the unthinkable. She ran to the massive trunk and pressed herself against it, not in anger, but in embrace. She poured not water, but her own spirit, her mercy, her choice to end the cycle, into its roots. The tree of counsel shuddered. The violent whispering stopped. The silver leaves turned a soft, gentle gold. The constricting vines retreated, releasing their captives, who collapsed, sobbing. The tree began to shrink. To recede. Not to a sapling, but to a mature, beautiful Mgando tree of normal size. Its leaves were now a calming green. At its base, where Chipo knelt, a small, clear spring bubbled up, water, pure and sweet, finally flowing. The tyranny was over. Makoko was stripped of his title by his broken people. But the village was forever scarred by the truths they had heard. Trust was a shattered vase, slowly being glued back together. The tree no longer dispensed judgment. But on quiet nights, if you sit beneath it with a pure heart and a complex problem, its leaves might rustle in a way that offers clarity. Not a verdict, but perspective. A nudge towards your own wisdom. And Chipo? She became the keeper of the spring and the tree. Not a judge, but a healer. The one who taught that justice without mercy is just another kind of famine. But in the deepest part of the forest, where the first whispers were stolen, a single, silver seed fell from the old tree of counsel before it changed. That seed lies buried. And it is fed by the whispers of a new, angry soul in a faraway village. Waiting for another drought. Waiting for another child's desperate act of kindness to give it roots. Chipo learned that a system that only punishes, without ever understanding, will eventually consume everyone. Her story teaches us that justice, when divorced from compassion, becomes an endless, hungry beast. True peace isn't found in rooting out every wrong, but in having the courage to sometimes say, "This ends with me." But what do you think? Was the tree of counsel a necessary evil to overthrow a tyrant, or was its brutal justice worse than Makoko's rule? Could Chipo have guided its power differently, or was its hunger for vengeance inevitable from the start? Let me know in the comments below. This is part 1 of the tale of the counsel tree. That silver seed is still out there, waiting in the dark soil. To see where it takes root next, and what new form of terrible justice grows from it, you need to subscribe and hit the bell icon. If you're haunted by stories where the cure becomes the disease, then witness the horror of the gourd that fed on lies. The link is on the screen right now. Don't forget to subscribe for more original, chilling tales from the Safari of Tales. We release new stories every week to make you question the very nature of right and wrong. Until next time, be careful what you water.